KerbRider F1 on the SPDM Crew Podcasting Network. We're here today to talk about the opening round of the 2026 Formula One season, the Australian Grand Prix. Lots to talk about, to be honest. First race of the season under the completely new regulations for this year. There was a lot of rhetoric floating about there, a lot of negativity, and a lot of action on track that we will cover off. When I say we, I mean me. Will cover off as we go through this. So I'm going to start with practice one and practice two. Just some quick notes. They were sunny on the Friday in Melbourne. Cars do still look quick, even though they are about 3.5 seconds slower than the cars from last year. The new regulations do have teams scrambling to catch back up because there's a lot less downforce. Engines work differently, which I've spoken about before. And if you are listening to this, you're probably into the sport and are well aware of that. So I won't over-explain and spoon-feed too much information in that regard. But in my opinion, the cars still look great. I actually like these cars aesthetically, the way they look. They do look smaller. They are smaller. They look quicker. They're obviously quicker in certain circumstances, but overall, yeah, clearly slower. A lot of teams are still having so many issues, just a lot to figure out. The only team that seems to have it completely figured out or figured out the most is Mercedes, clearly, who we'll get to the race result very soon. However, yeah, we're seeing a lot of issues from Aston Martin in particular, who knew they were never going to finish the race, but had to show up contractually to keep getting paid and allowed to miss a race. They're desperately short on parts. A lot of teams are. This has been a bit of a mad rush to get this new formula up and running, and a lot of teams are still scrambling. But the way the paddock and the way all the teams have come together and actually gotten to race now with these new regulations and the way they it's just a testament to how skilled and how highly trained, how highly organized, and just incredibly clever all of these people are that work in this sport. Probably on a pound for pound basis, the most intelligent industry on the planet. There are a lot, obviously there is aeronautics. I don't know why I'm getting into this rant right now, but I know there's aeronautics and a lot of, rocket science and stuff like that. But there's no one group of employees who have the skills and knowledge and the ability to turn things so quickly around as they do in Formula One. And one of those, a really great example of that is in practice 3 on Saturday. Kimi Antonelli crashed his car, completely totaled it. It was a mess. You can see the pictures online, and the team managed to rebuild that car in 2 hours. For Kimi to go out full of confidence, no worries about that crash, and qualify in second place on the grid, albeit 3/10, close to 3/10 behind his teammate. But that is a really great example of of teamwork, for one thing, but teamwork specifically in Formula One, and how incredibly professional and dedicated they are to their goals, to their team, to their sport. Everyone that's in this sport, I mean, surely they get to travel the world and they get paid pretty well, but they work so hard. They are so switched on. They are all pulling the same train down the same track, every one of them, in the hope of winning. And sadly, this year, it looks as though only one or two teams will probably be capable of winning races, and that is Ferrari and Mercedes. Just to touch on qualifying, there was it did look as though, and Oscar Piastri said it best, that the sandbags would well and truly come off. The Mercedes George Russell qualified 7-8 tenths ahead of the third place car. The third through to sixth on the grid were all within like a tenth and a half. So it's a pretty tight knit pack on 1 lap pace so far. And don't want to jump to too many conclusions, because Australia is a very specific circuit. China's not going to be much different, but it's not until we get into the next few rounds that we're going to get a truer picture of how these cars are really going to operate as the teams learn more about them as well. So the gap might not be 7 or 8 tenths in qualifying each race. But in saying that, onto the race, it was okay. Firstly, before I get into the race, I want to kind of address a lot of negativity I've seen online about these new regulations and how people just hate the sport because the drivers are having to lift off just to gain battery power. And look, I see the point. I see the points of view and totally understand them. However, I've been a fan of this sport for 30 odd years. I've seen many changes in this sport, and I'm everything that's happening was everything that I kind of expected. There was always going to be big gaps between these teams. I said as much on the Sports Ball podcast in the last couple of shows I've done, I did, especially last year's postseason analysis. I kind of mentioned that. We need to temper expectations. However, I mean, when the last set of regulations started in 2022, there was a huge gap. Red Bull just dominated. I mean, Max won 19 out of 22 races that year. I mean, that's probably likely, could possibly happen this year with George Russell and Kimi Antonelli just winning everything. And that's bound to happen, but the teams do catch up. And for this set of regulations specifically, the FIA have set up nice little rules that after each 6 rounds, especially on the engine side specifically, after 6 rounds, everything is weighed up, and if teams are found to be behind in the development of the engine, they're allowed to spend a bit more money to develop it, allowed to have more dyno hours, allowed to do this and that. So they do push towards equalization. But what seems to really be the issue at the moment, especially if we look at the Mercedes teams, there's 4 teams running Mercedes engines. A lot of people are saying, well, why aren't McLaren up there? They have the same engine. But this Mercedes have been developing this engine for 3 years, which means that they've been developing this car for the same amount of time, pretty much, understanding all these little nuances in their engine and how it even attaches to the car makes a big difference. So when McLaren had this, they get the basic concept of where the mounting points for the engine will be, and they design their car around that. Everything else that comes on the engine is kind of just pot luck. This is what you get from Mercedes when you buy an engine from them. So they have to develop that as well as the software around getting the most out of these power hungry units, battery power hungry units. Mercedes, like I said, have been able to develop this for 3 years. They have a big road car division that have been working on hybrids for a long time. McLaren don't have that. They just get the engine they're given and then they have to figure it out themselves. Mercedes, I suppose, give them some help on how to do some mapping basics around it, but to get the absolute last tenth of a second out of those engines, then yeah, that's a work of more than 6 days in preseason testing. There's a lot to come. But on top of that, Mercedes also look as though they've built a great car around that engine. It's not just all engine for them. They have a great car and they have 2 great drivers. So as I keep saying, we need to temper expectations. And those expectations are for probably Mercedes to win. There's a scheduled 24 rounds this year. Mercedes might win a good 3/4 of those, which means they could win 18 races this year. Ferrari are close to them, but looking at today's race, Mercedes clearly had the better race pace. I was a bit encouraged by Norris in the McLaren. His race pace towards the end of the race was quite good. I was also really impressed with how Mercedes were able to hang on to their tyres. And that is a massive advantage. They use those hard tyres for 40 odd laps. 46 laps. And that was pretty impressive just in itself. So to have the car, to have the engine, and to have a car that's really kind to its tyres is very much unbeatable at this point in time. If you did watch the race, the start, these regulations, I always had faith, which is what I was trying to get to before when I was talking about how good these teams work together and that to have the expectations when these new regulations start. I always had faith that the racing was still going to be good because of the strategy around how deployment occurs for each team, for each driver. They get to choose when to use their boost. That opening 3 laps with George, Charles, and Lewis all battling each other, and the lead. I've not seen the lead of a race swap more than probably 2 or 3 times in a race since I'd probably even say the 90s, if longer ago than that. And the lead swapped in this race in the first 3 laps 5, 6 times at least. I didn't keep count, but it was a lot just in the first 3 laps. once that virtual safety car came out, it did kind of ruin a lot of that closeness of the racing. And that's another point. These cars are able to follow each other much closer than they were last year. The aerodynamic development or the aerodynamic plans have seemed to have worked in creating these cars having an inwash rather than an outwash, trying as the teams are as to get some outwashing on these cars. I have a little thought that they need to ban that altogether and allowing teams to even develop outwash because that does create the dirty air and it does affect the cars behind them a great deal and being able to follow behind. Of course, there's always going to be an effect in an aero formula, but they can reduce it, which is what they have done. They need to keep it that way, is probably what I'm getting at. Anyway, the racing all the way down the track when cars were close together, it was excellent to watch. I mean, cars were overtaking each other and then being re-overtaken. That has not happened in the entire time I've been watching this sport, which is a long time. So, yeah, very excited, very enthused by the way the racing is being undertaken. There are going to be gaps, but imagine when all these teams do converge, because there is the return on investment when you are developing something, there's a finite amount. So other teams are going to gain more time on the teams in front. They're going to get closer easier than the car in front can keep pulling away. If that makes sense. That makes sense to me right now. But bear in mind that's going to be 2, 3, even 4 years before you see the cars together like they were last year. As I was saying on the intro show, the pre-season, if you listen back to that, there was a gap of there could be a gap of 1 second between 20 cars last year. This year we saw it's about 3.5, 4 seconds around Australia. China will obviously be different. A lot of tracks will be different. That's going to be track specific. But the cars that are close together, like that midfield pack was pretty tight between Haas, Alpine. Really, really impressed with VCarb. And onto that, I'll talk about who impressed me. Arvid Lindblad, Rookie of the Year. He is the only rookie in the field this year, but he had an amazing performance. Beat Liam in every session except for one lap in Q3, which made him look bad, made Liam look good. But yeah, Lindblad outraced Liam, who's been in that team for 2.5 years, basically on his debut as a teenager. Like that's very impressive. The kid has a bit of talent, and I hope he can continue that. To be honest, so yeah, George Russell obviously impressed. He was clinical the entire weekend. He pulled out the laps when he needed to pull them out in qualifying. He raced incredibly quickly, incredibly well. Like I said, that I was alluding to before, that battle at the start was so brilliant to watch. It was excellent. There was no mistakes from anyone. It was completely fair racing. It was very hard racing. It was amazingly exciting. And George come out on top. So you've got to give him the what do you call them? The candy. Got to give him the plaudits for a great win and a great weekend all around. Until the formation lap, or not even the formation lap, just the installation laps getting to the grid. Oscar crashed. He was impressing me. He was on top of Lando all weekend as well by roughly 3.5 tenths again until Q3 when he just couldn't seem to find a bit of extra time. He still qualified in front of Lando. But yeah, his little accident at the start, I mean, it was pretty obvious it wasn't Oscar's fault. None of the drivers are that silly to make a mistake like that in dry conditions. And he's come out and said later it was definitely a torque related thing. There was 100 extra kilowatts of power that he wasn't expecting to have at that time. And he did allude to some stuff I wasn't aware of when the rules on how this power is put down. So I'll need to do some more investigating to figure out exactly what he means by that. But really interesting nonetheless. Also was impressed with Isaac Hadjar, the sister Red Bull, the Max's teammate. He was impressive. He was at or around Max's pace a lot this weekend. When it come down to the nitty gritty, he was only 2 or 3 tenths off, which is really impressive. And that's probably a testament to this new set of regulations in this car, because I'm sure that Sergio and even Liam, even Yuki last year would have been within the same or closer to Max, to be honest, in this car. So it's not that Hadjar is that much better than those guys. It's just that these cars are a bit more simpler to drive. Not simpler is probably not the right word, but a bit more predictable in their balance is probably the best way to put it. So yeah, Hadjar, excellent. Well done from him. Kimi Antonelli also was pretty impressive. He's obviously got a very great car, but it's only his second year. So yeah, for him to come back from a poor start and still end up second says a lot about how quick that Mercedes car actually is, but it also, Kimi still has to go out and do the job. So good, kudos to him. Excellent work. Who didn't impress me was Liam Lawson. I'm just really underwhelmed by him all the time. I just don't rate him as that quick a driver. He's not that impressive. He's never done anything that impressed me, to be honest. So I don't know. Every time I watch him, I expect more from him, but he's just not giving me more. And to be pretty soundly beaten by a rookie teammate in his first actual race, yeah, you've got to give him the thumbs down for this round. Sorry, Lamb fans. Also, who didn't impress me was Haas. I held a lot more hope out for Haas, even though Ollie Behrman did, I think, end up in 7th position. Sadly, I was expecting a bit more of them. They kind of fell into 7th place because of a bit of luck, a bit of retirement, a bit of virtual safety car. I just thought they would have had better pace than what they did. Esteban Ocon was a little bit off the pace as well, I think. I mean, Ollie Behrman has his number. I think for the most part, it's going to be close here and there, but I think Ollie will outdo him pretty much for the entire season. And Alpine, even though again Gasly did score points again through just some circumstances, but again they weren't as quick as they probably should have been, which is again it's track specific. Who knows what it's going to be like in China and Japan? It's going to be pretty interesting to see how this season folds out for the rest of it, to be honest, because it's going to be fascinating. I can't wait to keep talking about it race by race, and I hope you guys tune in and keep listening to me. Max was out in quali 1. That was a big shock. I'm not sure many people were disappointed about that, other than Max fans, who there are a large number of you. Mercedes dominated, and that's about it for the race. Just one last thing I want to discuss is that it's looking more and more likely that Bahrain and Jeddah, which are rounds 4 and 5 of the championship, are going to be cancelled. They probably won't. Well, it's very likely they're unable to be replaced. And I have a little thought that I did put out there. If you follow F1 KerbRider on Threads and or Instagram, I did put out there that I think logistically they would be able to pull off another test, because it's very clear that these cars aren't up to scratch and the teams need more time to get up to speed with them. So why not give them at least a 3-day test there's any location in Europe would welcome them, and they'd be able to get there logistically. So Barcelona, Portimao, or Imola would be the 3 I would think would be in the mix if they were able to hold a test. I mean, this set of regulations, I think for the first year or two, is going to remain fluid. So I'd like to see them replace if 2 races are cancelled, give the guys a test so they can at least get some track time and get these things right. So it makes it better for the fans, right? It's making it better for us. It's making it better for them, and gives everyone a bit more hope that these teams can entertain us a bit more. That's why they get the big bucks, right? So anyway, on that note, hit me up on Instagram or Threads if you are so well inclined to ask me some questions, or just talk about F1 in general, or even if you want to come on the show and do these debriefs with me, because it's a bit weird doing it by myself. I'd like to have someone to talk to, but here we are, and hopefully it's engaging enough for you guys to keep listening. But I'll keep trying, I'll keep improving and keep getting better. But until next week, after the Chinese Grand Prix, we will see you at the races.